Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Daniel Cook with Cook DFW Roofing, and coming to you from a rainy day here in North Texas, and it looks like it's going to continue to be that way. But we got a great topic today, and this has become a pretty focal point for us recently. And we're going to share some ideas with drainage and why that's important to your home, what you need to look for around your home when you're walking around it. And it's some ways to improve it and why you want to do that. So we're going to jump into that topic right now, but let's, Lyndon, are you with us?
I am.
All right. Good morning.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic, man. So haven't got wet today yet, but my time's coming. We're fixing to head out here just momentarily, but we got to do this podcast real quick. So
right.
But today is a perfect topic. It just fell in line that we have all this rain. Coming through, and then right now we're fixing to head into our stormy season.
Yeah.
And so, but recently we've had several calls for different various things. Some customers are calling about gutters. Some customers are talking about, underneath their house because they have a pier and beam got wet because they had some broken pipes, and that caused their foundation to shift. We've been called out also because some of these small, tiny lots, these home builders are building these zero lot lines, and the houses are on top of each other. But the middle of the between the homes, they're so tight, and and it diverts the soil down to that little V that you got this huge amount of standing water between the two homes. And then somebody has to get to their gate on the side of their house, and they're like, I don't want to trample through this pond every time.
That's of course you've been out to my house, but that's kind of how it is on the north side of our house, in between our neighbor. And unfortunately ours is built, we've got a pretty good hill in the back and where the house is here, and it drains towards the fence that separates our property, and then it funnels out towards the street.
Right.
Well, it's a mess. And the other thing that's creating is that when it becomes really soft and you get any kind of winds, it starts to move that fence a little bit, because those posts aren't put down very deep.
Yeah, not from a builder's point of view. No,
yeah.
I mean, majority of those crews that put those fences in, they get paid per linear foot, and trust me, they're trying to get feet in there as quick as possible. I once talked to a crew and I said, "How many feet do you do a week?" He goes, "Our goal is 2,500."
Wow.
And I don't know if you've ever built a fence by hand. I can tell you right now, 2,500 feet of fence in a week is a ton. And
yeah, it would be.
I mean, that's a ton. Me and Keith and some of the guys have built, 300 and 400 linear foot of fence, and that took us a week. So I can imagine 2,500 linear feet.
I don't know if this talks about my lack of ability or not, but I built a gate in a weekend one time.
Those gates are tricky, I will tell you that.
No, they are, and especially when it's on a hill. And fortunately, I was able to take the old one off and kind of had a template for it.
Oh, that's cheating.
No, it's not. No one has to know that, except now I just publicized it. But yeah, I was looking at that thing, and I'm like, nothing is level. I mean, everything is, and it swings level.
Right.
But everything, I'm like, okay, so I'm just going to take this one off and measure every stinking board on here, and then I'll figure it out.
Yeah, we built a couple of those. Those are fun.
Yeah.
But that brings up some good topics. So we'll start with the basics. So a lot of homes in North Texas do not come with gutters. Don't know why. I think it's a cost point from a builder's point of view. If a builder had to add an additional $1,200 or $1,300 on every home for gutters, that taps into their $50,000 profit that they made.
Right.
So they don't want to do that. And a lot of consumers, especially first-time home buyers or people that just get into a home, they don't understand why gutters are there in the first place, But gutters play a much bigger role into your home than most people give it credit for. Mm-hmm. So if you do not have gutters, you're just allowing water to run off your roof line, however it fills. And some of the pitches, when I say pitch, meaning the degree of height of the side of your roof, are extreme. So if you've got a 10 pitch roof or a 9 pitch roof and you're just allowing water to cascade directly off into the side of your yard, and I'm sure if you have a home, if you don't have gutters, you're going to be able to see this. If you walk around your side of your home, you'll see like a little rut right below your roof line around your home. And that means that's where that water's just cascading off and creating that indentation in the ground, because that's the force of the water coming off your roof line.
Right.
Now, if you have that going for a long time, what that does, that erodes the soil around that area. And usually that's no more than a foot off your foundation side. So usually you have about a foot of eave and soffit, and that's where that water comes right off. And then if you allow that to continue to grow, that erosion, it can affect your foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's super important. Obviously, we've talked about foundations in some shows before, but if your foundation starts getting weak, or you start to allow soil to erode around in large pockets around your home, you're going to have a multi-$1,000 repairs with erosion and with foundation. So letting that happen and continue to happen and not fixing that is going to be a long-term problem. So gutters are there for a function. They are to divert water in a control process that's going to get that water away from the foundation and make sure it exits your property and it's in proper drainage areas. And grading comes in effect with that too. Most homes are graded to where the property, the home it sets up, is a little bit elevated. And generally, they allow all the water to run around, because that's part of the building process, is to grade that to make sure the water goes away from the foundation. You don't want standing water anywhere around your slab or anything like that. Even if it's pure and beam.
Something else that I saw is you'll see sometimes, especially kind of with the front-facing garages, where you come up into the garage and you walk around to the front door, and if it doesn't have, a lot of times that water will come right off onto the walkway.
Yep.
And what I've noticed over time with different people is their sidewalk, their walkway starts to buckle and crack, and because that water just goes up underneath there, actually erodes underneath the because that's not put down very deep or very well most of the time. Like you said, on a quick build, they're going through, that's somebody else's problem down the road. I think they kind of look at it sometimes if it happens, but people wonder why their concrete starts separating and cracking and everything on the walkway, and I think a lot of that is just because I got a buddy. I went to his house. Was it last week that we had a lot of rain too?
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, ice storm.
It was before the ice storm, and it was like Niagara Falls coming off his roof right there at where you walk in. He had to open the garage so I could go in that way, because it was just unbelievable.
Yep. Well, and you brought up a great point. I mean, anywhere that water's coming down around your home, that's creating, a drainage issue that will cause multiple issues. Fence posts getting, like you said, too much moisture in those fence posts, getting water sitting there. It's just gonna cause those fences to start leaning. Those poles get weak. Perfect sidewalks. Your soil for your landscaping. They make these little beds and they look all pretty and everything, but if you don't have some type of drainage, making sure water's not just crushing that bed. I mean, all that soil and all that stuff's going to get washed away out of that.
You're going to be remulching every time it rains.
Absolutely. Your mulching is going to be just going down the street. You're just giving it away. So, I mean, drainage is so important around a person's home. And again, it's one of these things that most home buyers don't understand, don't look at, don't address until they've been told that they have a major problem. And so that's why we want to talk about it today. So gutters are super important. Now, you also, another thing that builders do, they'll kind of cheat. They'll put entry and backdoor gutters, which means basically right around your front door. So like if you're going into your friend's house, a builder might put a little bit of gutter on that side, around that front door, and right under the back door, just to divert a little bit of water. So when you walk out, you don't get deluged at the minute you walk out of your home or walk into it. But that's really cheating, because all the other sides of your home, big areas around your home, are not protected. And so, you might not think about it because you don't get wet necessarily. And you see these little, metal gutters up above your door, but that's not really doing anything for your home. So those are just ways that builders say, well, we got entry gutters, that's just going to allow you to enter.
Well, it diverts your attention is what it does. I mean, if you walked out and got drenched, then you're like, oh, I don't have gutters. But if you don't ever think about it, you may not ever realize until it's too late that
Yeah,
your whole house didn't have gutters.
right. So. So gutters are a very important part, and they make all kinds of different gutters. Gutters have become more elegant over time. There's a 5-inch gutter that's pretty much a standard, and that comes with a 2x3 downspout. I mean, the downspout measures 2 inches wide, 3 inches wide, and 2 inches in depth, and so it holds a fair amount of water. And every one of these, there's a scientific method that, per slope of the roof, how much water comes off that slope versus the pitch, and how much gutter water can be controlled in a 5-inch and a 2x3 down. So there's some mathematical skills in some of this stuff. And they make a 6-inch gutter, just a little bit larger, carries a little bit larger amount of water. We're able to withstand that. And the downspouts on those are usually about a 3x4. And so those are an oversized gutter system. And then for your nicer gutter systems, they're called barrels or half rounds. Those barrels are able to, they're a much meatier gutter system. And so those half rounds all together, those are about 7 inches. And sometimes they're even bigger, they're 8 inches in some formats. And so when those are put on your home, I mean, it carries a ton amount of water, and they look very nice, and they're hung a lot differently, and they do take a lot longer to install, and they do unfortunately cost a pretty good amount of money to install in your home. But
I'll tell you what, this is something I learned when I had my cabin up in Oklahoma. We didn't have running water, so I decided I was going to collect rainwater for all the bath, gray water type stuff that we would produce. And I in my research, I found out that 1 inch of rain on 1,000 square foot area, you can collect 600 gallons. So that's what's coming off of your roof. And if you think about the force of 600 gallons falling 10 to 8 feet, be pretty powerful.
no, it is. It's extremely powerful. I mean, you gotta. Well, you just got to see it to believe it. It's one of those things. People see it rain. They drive in the rain. They don't typically walk around their house in the rain. Let's say
Right.
that. So.
Well, the other
But
thing,
it's happening.
the other
It's
thing
happening.
for people that may be, have their flower gardens or things like that, summertime, and you could actually collect some rainwater if you wanted to, and if you're kind of got that green mentality, which nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
It's a great way to save water to water your lawn,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
everything.
They make a couple of barrel systems. They're plastic barrels, and you can actually do these on your own. You can buy a plastic barrel. You can cut some holes in it to allow your downspouts to pour into that barrel. Have a little stand for it near one of your downspouts that collects a pretty good large amount of water, and that 55-gallon barrel can be filled up pretty quickly. And
Very, very quick.
and then all you do is take a hose. You put a hose bib on the bottom of that barrel, connect it to it, and you put a hose, and you can use that for watering your flowers, watering your garden.
Yeah.
That water is going to be very, very beneficial like that. And it will. I mean, you think about, it's not like going to be like thousands of dollars. But you know what? If you save 55 gallons of water and use that pretty much to do your outside watering, over a year, that might save you a couple $100 in water.
Well, especially during the summer when a lot of the cities have, kind of that water rationing going on.
Right.
It allows you to continue to water to a certain degree. Like you said, it's not going to last forever,
Right.
but you would be surprised at how much it can offset a little bit of what you've been doing.
Yeah. And especially if you have like I went to one house in Grapevine. This guy had 7 barrels in a tandem. So he put pipe between each barrel. And
Yep.
So they were just flowing over, filling up and creating like a baffle. And so
Yep.
he had literally 7 barrels along the edge of the side of his home, and he was just collecting water off of them.
Yep.
And I asked him, I said, how long does that stay full if we're getting into a drought? And he goes, and he had a big old garden in the backyard. I mean, he probably had a garden that was 20 by 40, a pretty good sized garden, not a small thing. And he had okra out there, tomatoes and squash, and all kinds of, summertime things. Because I think I was out there, it was like July. And he said, well, I tell you, he goes, I have those barrels usually get full by the end of spring.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, I don't use them throughout the time. But he goes, if we don't have any rain come down, he goes, those barrels will last me almost 5 weeks.
Wow.
So that's a pretty good amount of water. Now, 7, that's a large, this is a large example here. I mean,
Right.
That's almost what, almost 400 gallons of water he's saving,
Right.
on the side. But for him to be able to use that for 5 weeks, that's pretty good for that large of a garden.
Well,
And
yeah, think about it. If your city's water rationing and you're only allowed to water on certain days, if you watered on those days and then use the water that you stored on the other days, um, your yard, your plants, whatever it's going to be, is going to thrive a lot better than being rationed.
yeah, yeah, no, those are good ideas, and a lot of people do those. I have seen several people who have barrels around. It's always people that have some kind of growing. They like to grow plants, and so
Right.
that's all they do. So,
Yeah.
but so gutters can be used as those. Yep, that's a perfect example of what you can do. Also, extensions on the gutters are sometimes necessary.
Mhm.
People have gutters, but they may be running right beside their foundation, and their foundation may not be graded properly, especially older homes. I see this on older homes more than anything. Lots that are 40 years old, 30 years old, they tend to flatten out. The grading is degraded over time. And so you become really flat next to your home. You don't have that runoff. And so when your gutters are just, because the downspout just has a little elbow at the end of it. And if they don't put an extension on it, that water's just going to be sitting right there. And guess where it's running back toward? It's going to be running towards your foundation. So
Mhm.
you've got to sometimes create extensions off of these gutter downspouts. And not all of them, but you need to be able to walk around and say, where am I holding water? Where is it not pushing away from my foundation, or where am I holding it? Because you need to then add extensions. And they make all kinds of extensions. You can have hard gutter extensions that match the gutter themselves, and they just attach, and you can get them in any kind of feet that you want. You can get them in 2 foot, 3 foot, 4 foot. The only negative thing there is obviously you have a hard piece of metal that's going to be on the ground. So if you're lawn mowing or weed eating or walking around, sometimes those become cumbersome around your property. So that's one thing.
I never thought about doing this, but and you would know better. You know how you run the field line from septic? It's got the perforated pipe that you run on
Mm-hmm.
out.
Mm-hmm.
Could you not do that in the right areas on your downspout where it would just run out into the yard and,
Yep, sure
30,
can.
20, 30 feet? Okay.
Yeah, that is an option actually. That's something we're going to go into. So they have those plastic movable extensions that you can attach to your downspout, and those are more pliable. You can rotate those and shift them and kind of put them where you want to. I see those a lot in landscaping areas. So the downspouts coming off the house, the downspout extension is going through the flower bed because they don't want their mulch to get washed away.
Hmm.
So they run it through the flower bed and then out into the yard. So extensions are very common. There's different ones. Some people use those little pads. Those pads are about 12 inches long and they're
Yeah.
about 6 inches wide, and they kind of just allow the water to push out a little bit further away. So ideas like that can be done. The other thing that you just brought up is connecting a drainage tube, and then basically connecting that to the end of the drain pipe. You can then dig little tunnels underneath the ground about roughly 8 inches, because those pipe diameters are usually anywhere between 6 and 8 inches in diameter. So you got to dig underground, and you want to give yourself about a 3 inches of soil on top of that to make sure it doesn't pulk up or anything. And then you can run those tubings out to the center between where your homes are and let that water divert naturally underground, and then allow that to push out through that grading. So that is a possible system as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it takes a little bit more effort, obviously. It's not just throwing something on there and just hooking it up. I mean, you got to put some time and effort into getting those, dug, and how long they are. That it all changes depending on what your needs are. So the next step to that, though, if you are that home that has a lot of water between you and your neighbor's home and it collects all the time in that middle, the best thing you can do is dig a trench and create a drain system that all the way you cut in the middle between your neighbor's home, and you cut that all the way out with an emitter at the end near your sidewalk. And then that way all that water would funnel out in a way down all the way in front of your property to in front of that sidewalk area where the grading then is taken over by the street.
Hmm.
So that would allow that it's called a French drain, but there's different types of French drains. But that would allow that water to stop being held right there between you and your neighbor's homes. And it's going to get worse. It's not going to get better.
Right.
I've always heard people say, "Oh, well, eventually the grass is going to grow in, and eventually, it'll." I'm like, no, that's not going to happen. The grass can't get established because it's underwater.
Right.
So I mean, and then what happens is it dries out. We get the summer, and then you get to see these big piles of cracked mud and everything all over your middle of your section of your neighbor in your yard. And there's nothing. Then I see people cheating. Then I see people start to put rock out there and lava rock and all kinds of stuff between your home instead of just fixing the drainage problem.
Right.
So that's not going to get fixed. So, I mean, I see this a lot in big areas. Craig Ranch, humongous problem with this.
Really?
For some reason, they built those homes on top of each other. And majority of them don't have any side gutters. And these are $500,000 and $600,000 houses.
Right. That's what I was thinking. That's kind of odd that when you mentioned that name, I'm like, that's kind of a pretty good neighborhood.
But I know because we put in gutters on several homes in that area because of this. And then we even had some of our guys go out there and dig some French drains in, because literally there would be 3 or 4 foot wide water standing between these homes. And the guys can't get to their gates. You know, they can't every time it rains. I mean, you got to have an extra pair of mud boots in your garage just to get to your backyard. So it's like
a boat. You got to have a canoe.
Oh my goodness! And then you think about it. So and this is something that comes up right. You're the responsible homeowner. You put gutters up. You divert the water. Guess what your neighbor still has coming off their house?
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter sometimes what you do, you know, because you're still getting impacted by your neighbor.
Right.
And maybe they don't know better, you know, but still it's going to impact you. So sometimes being a homeowner doesn't always mean it's fair. That's the next topic.
Right.
I have been to so many homes where this has become a problem, and they're like, well, I've done all this, and what else can I do? My neighbor won't fix his house. You know, I'm like, well, we need to make sure your home is protected for you. That's our job. So we're going to show you everything that's going to protect your home. And sometimes you got to build the drain. You got to build the ditch in order to protect your home if your neighbor's not trying to work with you, unfortunately. So that is unfortunate. And that's happened. That's happened several times. I've been on job sites, and we're looking at drainage. And it's because the neighbor will not address his home, doesn't care about it. You can tell he doesn't care about it. His yard has grass that are 4 feet high in the backyard. You know, and it's just like, I got to protect it. So, you know, those situations do occur, you know. But drainage is so important. There's so many different facets to it. Sprinkler systems are another aspect of drainage. If your sprinkler system has a lot of ponding water in your yard after you run your sprinkler system, you have a problem. You need to have that looked at and addressed and figure out, do I need to minimize the amount of water maybe coming out of my sprinklers in those zones? Because you can do that. You need to see if I got some low spots in my yard that are collecting water. You need to then reevaluate, adding some soil there, maybe modifying the grass structure. If you have sprinklers underneath trees, and we all know grass is hard to grow into trees, especially Bermuda, you need to probably think about, how am I going to modify that sprinkler system so I don't have this ton of water just flowing off this mud, because you're watering mud basically at that point, unless you add in or blend in St. Augustine grass or grass that absorbs moisture a lot easier and is able to grow in the shaded areas. So, but then you have a couple of different kinds of grass in your yard. So there's really no perfect answer to these things, but these are things that you need to look at as a homeowner. And believe it or not, you know, we're right around the corner from springtime storms. And before you know it, you know, we're going to have, you know, today was a pretty good amount of rain we got. You know, I think probably overnight, and this morning we've already got over 1 inch of rain here in Melissa. You know,
well, I saw on the news this morning on the traffic report where there was a lot of flooded out areas just from driving. So with all the precipitation we've had over the last few weeks, I mean, the ground's saturated. It's going to be holding water right now.
Yep, correct. So, but yeah, so those are some dang good, important facts for drainage. I would suggest everybody, you know, I know you're not going to walk around your house in the rain, but let's go walk around your house after it stops, and let's see how much pooling water you have around your home, around your yard, certain areas. Retaining walls are notorious for this. Retaining walls that don't have proper drainage. And guess who's responsible for the retaining wall?
Homeowner.
The homeowner that the retaining wall rests on.
Mm-hmm.
So that brings up another thing. You know, we talked about who's responsible for what. A lot of HOAs. So you may be below the retaining wall. It may not be on your property line, but let's say homeowner A doesn't take care of their retaining wall. Guess where the retaining wall is going to go?
In your place.
In your backyard. So regardless if you're responsible for it or not, you might be the bearer of bad news when you walk out to your backyard one day and you see half the retaining wall fell down. And then that gets ugly. I've seen that happen also. So
Yeah.
You got to be prepared for these things. And drainage is so important. It affects everything as far as yard and grading of the property and all those kind of things. So
Right.
super important. I don't know. Anything else you could think of that we need to talk about? Or, gutters, cost. Cost is something we didn't discuss. I mean, give everybody an idea of cost. Right now, a simple gutter system, 5-inch in style, usually is running about $6.50 a foot. The metal went up significantly over the last year or so. Back in the I can't say back in the old days, but 4 or 5 years ago, gutters were about $3.50 a foot. So if that gives you any reference, so they've doubled in the last 4 years basically.
Yeah. Yeah, I was saying that's what I was thinking when I put it on my cabin. It was I think 360, 365 a foot.
Yeah.
I didn't have to have a lot. It wasn't a huge cabin, but and I didn't use the metal. I used the plastic because it was easier for me to cut.
True.
And but I don't think that's hail in our neck of the woods. I don't think that would hold up to hail very well.
No. Well, that brings up 2 more things. That's perfect. So gutters that you have made for you are custom cut to your home. Those are called seamless gutters because they run them out in however many feet they need to. So if you have a 40-foot run on the side of your home or a 50-foot run, they can run that entire run without a cut line or seaming 2 pieces together. And that's extremely important because the least amount of seams you have, the less likely you're going to have leaks in your gutters. Mm-hmm. And that usually happens around corners where they meet, the 2 L's meet up, or a lot of places where they have to cut because they have to take the special bond. And the bond is super expensive if the gutter company uses the right kind. There's this waterproof, super tight, tacky gum that they put in those seam lines to make them where they don't leak. But you got to get those metal cuts exactly precise too, because you want those to line up and then seam that really well. It's almost like a liquid weld, basically.
Right.
But that's important. So seamless gutters are definitely the way to go to get gutters in your home. I know that Lowe's and Home Depot, and they sell all these 10-foot segments and everything, and it's like, do it yourself. These gutters are only like $10 for a whole big old, plastic section. I'm like, go ahead. You're going to put those up there. They're going to leak. Is it going to look like you got colanders up there?
Well, and you're absolutely right. One of the things I experienced with the plastic ones, and again, I was putting it on a cabin, so I really wasn't worried about a lot of the aesthetic. I was looking for function, right? I was looking to catch rainwater, and but through the winter, that plastic would get brittle. The seams that I had, which seemed to fit together very well when I was putting them together, but through the winter and the expanding and contraction and everything else that could go through, I started having leaks everywhere. Yeah. And the corners were just like you said. It was, I should have been catching rainwater at my corners because that's where it was leaking.
Yeah, that's very common, unfortunately.
And not that I'm a gutter professional, but you can't. There are do-it-yourself. That's kind of, you're talking about that, about things that can be done, the things that can be done. Right. But it's the quality of the materials. I mean, I don't care how good you are. Yeah. If the material is not good, the product's not going to be good, the end result.
And then the last thing, real quick, run out of time, is gutter covers. Those are a good tool to have, especially if you have a lot of trees or landscaping that's on top of your roof line. That's going to cause your gutters to get clogged, because if your gutters get clogged, it's a big pain in order to remove all those leaves and all that debris outside your downspouts. Especially, imagine you have a 2-story house. You got a 25-foot gutter downspout on the side of your home and it gets clogged up. Mm-hmm. Well, that's not going to be easy to get debris out of there. You got to climb up a 25-foot ladder. You got to get a power washer or hose. You got to stick it down the downspout and put enough pressure. Hopefully you can clean those things out. So gutter covers are the alternative to those. And those are extremely important, especially if you have trees, or even if your neighbor has trees and you don't. Mm-hmm. Those tree leaves are coming to your property. I hate to tell you.
They will.
So you need to be prepared for that. So gutter covers are very important, especially if you have vegetation. And especially, real quick, if you have trees and landscaping right beside your roof, that should be cut back at least 5 feet off your roof line. So I see this all the time where trees are hanging on top of people's roofs, and debris is getting on top of those gutters, and it's like, hey, you got to have all this done. They're like, oh, I guess that's a good idea. I'm like, yes, it's a dang good idea. So, you got to get this house taken care of. So,
Yep.
But all right, well, looks like we're pretty much out of time for today.
All right, Daniel. Well, another great show, great information. All you homeowners out there that are watching and staying tuned, just keep watching because we're always going to be having great information like this. I don't have to tell anybody watching that if you need someone to come out and just show you what's going on around your house, some things you may miss, Daniel and them, I'll let you discuss that. But Daniel, I'm going to let you close us out. Tell everybody how to get in touch with you and what all you can do for them. And we'll see everybody again next week.
All right, thanks, Lyndon. Appreciate your help with the show. So, yes, sir. Let's see if everybody likes to contact us. We come out, do free evaluations on your home, free estimates, gutters, roofing, anything that you need around your house, painting. I'd love to come out and visit that with you. 833-COOK-DFW is our main number. You can also email me, daniel@cookdfw.com. And take a look at our website. We have lots of information on there and samples of projects we've done. That's just cookdfw.com. And until next time, take care of your home, folks. See you later.